Hey guys, this is Javier from Javier Hurtado Realty. Today I have a special treat for you guys. I have a certified divorce lending specialist, a lender named John Maroney. He is CDLP certified. I'd like to introduce you guys. Here you go, John.
Thanks, Javier. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Awesome. So a lot of people have been wondering in this field is, what is divorce mortgage planning? What is that really?
Yeah, so divorce mortgage planning takes a holistic approach for the divorcing homeowner. So when someone's going or even contemplating divorce, as you can see, there's four pieces. There's the family law piece, there's the financial and tax planning,
Okay.
tax implications, the real property, the real estate itself, and then there's the mortgage itself. And oftentimes, each homeowner is going through the most charged point in their life, and they're so emotional that to ask them to put these four pieces together on their own is almost impossible, because I mean they may not even be an expert in any of those areas. So a certified divorce lending professional, we take a holistic approach and we overlook all these areas. In the case of an attorney, for example, I will get involved in the beginning and help the attorney craft some language in the divorce settlement. I'll just give you one quick example. Let's say the husband is moving out and he's going to stay on the mortgage. Maybe they don't want to refinance right now because they feel the rate is too high to do that. But he's concerned that he might not be able to qualify for a house because he's still on this mortgage. I say no problem, because as long as you can put in the divorce settlement the language that the wife would be responsible for the mortgage from day one. In the mortgage world, I would not have to debt him for that mortgage payment that he and his wife's on. So for qualifying purposes, there's no issue there. If that language was not in the settlement agreement, then we'd have to wait 12 months showing that the wife was making the mortgage payments before we could exclude that from the debt ratio. So that's like one example how we take a look at that, because the attorney themselves, they're crafting the settlement agreement so that all the legalese are there, and it will get satisfied by the courts. Maybe not taking a look at some of the omissions or ramifications that they should be putting in there. So that's it in a nutshell for the overview of the divorce mortgage planning.
All right. That's actually really enlightening. And what is usually the typical journey that a divorcing homeowner might take? What does that look like for people that don't know?
Yeah. So what happens? I actually have a nice slide here. So actually, the very first step is they go through self reflection. To see do they even, let's say they even decide, all right, we're going to get divorced, but how do we do this? So like in the first step, you got the wants and needs. Are we going to retain the marital home? Do we need to do that? How old are our children? Are they in high school? So should we buy or sell? Again, we want to take the stability of the children into effect. What can I afford, right? And then and usually that's the part where they start talking to me, because then I get into the next step where we talk about the options. We take a look, try to figure out what the value of the property is. We get either a broker price opinion, where someone like yourself would come in to kind of get an idea what the value is, or even an appraisal. What are they going to do? Are they going to do an equity buyout? Does the spouse that's leaving, they're going to walk away with some money? Is it going to be a lump sum? What's the time frame? Like how much time are they going to give each other to do such an event? And then again, the next stage, the settlement, the verbiage, what we just talked about, the settlement agreement, the assignment of debt. A lot of people splitting assets, they're splitting debt as well. Who's responsible for that? And then the nuts and bolts, of course, is that's when we're going to move forward with let's say it's the refinance. Now we're going to get an appraisal done. We're going to take a look at the income stream to see if the spouse that's going to retain the home is going to be able to qualify. That's why I always recommend in a divorce that they get pre-qualified before they do the final negotiations, just to see if keeping the house is even feasible. I've had
That makes
situations
a lot of
where,
sense. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that makes a
yeah,
lot of sense because once you do it, once you're done with the fact and you see your options afterwards, it might be too late. So right now, what you're essentially saying is being proactive is the best course of action.
yeah, absolutely. Because I've had situations where, the husband, agreed to, stay on the mortgage. I had one where this was when the rates were dropping. He wanted to take advantage of getting a low rate, and he was willing to stay on the mortgage because he was carrying all the income. So, and he knew it was like the greater good of the household to get a lower rate on the mortgage because he knew his wife was going to stay there. So he had no problem co-signing. And in the divorce settlement, we just said that the wife is responsible for the mortgage, and so it was a win-win right there. Um, and then we close, and everything's in terms of the house, everything's fine. Because the whole thing here, really, what it comes down to is setting both divorcing spouses in the best light, because there is life after divorce. And the question is, for each of them, what do they want their life to look like, post divorce? um, One of the things I want to say is when we're going through the pre-approval, and I always ask, let's say I'm just talking to one of the spouses, I ask the obvious question: does your spouse know you're thinking about divorce? Because you want to get pre-approved for a mortgage. Once I pull a credit report, there's a thing called trigger leads, where the credit bureau sells leads to all these mortgage companies, because it gets categorized someone's shopping for a mortgage, and whoever phone number is on file is going to be getting inundated with these mortgage companies saying, "Hey, looking to do something with your mortgage." And if the other spouse, if that happens to be their phone number, they're going to be getting called from mortgage companies, wondering what's going on. So that's why I always ask: does your spouse know before I pull a credit? You guys are going to be getting all these calls, so just make sure um, that they know that you're exploring mortgage options. I mean, it would be an awful thing for one spouse to find out they're getting divorced from a telemarketer.
Yeah, that is not a good call to receive. I will tell you
No,
that much.
not at all.
Okay. Well, now that we went through those things, I guess now I want to ask something more personal to you, John. What
Sure.
unique strategies do you have that you know you have for divorcing homeowners? What do you employ?
Okay. So, every situation is different. So, one of them I had mentioned about putting the language in the settlement agreement. I had another one where the couple right off the bat said, "Okay, we're getting divorced. We're gonna sell off our assets. We're gonna split everything up." And they happen to have a second home in Plymouth, and they were going to sell that, and they were going to pay all this capital gains tax. So I said, the husband was moving out. He happened to work in Boston. I said, "Look," I go, "why don't you live in that Plymouth property for 2 years as your primary residence, then sell it? You're going to be saving a boatload of capital gains tax, because if you live in your primary residence for 2 out of the 5 years, the IRS gives you an exclusion. I think it's 250. It's 250,000 for a single person, 500 for a married couple. But in this case, he'd be divorced, so he'd still get the first 250,000 of the gain, of the capital gain, of tax free of capital gain. So anything above a profit of 250,000, that's when they stop paying the gain. So you think about 250,000. So right there, they save $50,000 in tax um, by doing that
Awesome,
strategy.
awesome.
Yeah, and I had there was another one where the wife, because a lot of times these um, the stay at home spouse, um, takes care of the household, and the spouse that's working, takes care of all the bills. It just seems to, that's the way it goes down. The stay-at-home spouse eventually probably kind of gets away from the finance, and I've had situations where they didn't even have any credit at all. So to reestablish credit, there's a nice website called Credit Cards with an S, creditcards.com. You get on that website, no matter what your situation is, there's a credit card for you. You could be in the middle of foreclosure, you'll get a credit card.
Whoa, I didn't know
Bankruptcy,
that.
yeah,
I
there's
didn't know that was like,
all types of situations. I mean, on let's say a worst case, they might just say, okay, you're at risk, so we're going to put we're going to make it a secured card where you need to put up, I don't know, say $300. That's fine. It's your money anyways. And I say, use that card like what you would normally do for cash, whether you're going to buy groceries or gasoline, and pay it off every month. That's how you establish credit or reestablish credit of someone who just went through a bankruptcy or foreclosure. Creditcards.com. That's a nice way. The
okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Now,
one of the
mhm,
things I've been hearing a lot lately is when people want to do an equity buyout, but they say we don't want to do anything because the interest rates are too high. So I say to that, I said, your interest rate is at 3%, and you're going to go to say 8%. Let's say, for example, that total monthly payment increases by $1,300 a month. That's 15,000 a year. And I would say, say the husband wanted $200,000. I say, right now you're not getting anything today. So I suggest this. How long are you going to wait to get refinanced? And they might say, well, we're going to do maybe 3 years. All right, so $15,000 over 3 years, 45,000. I said, why don't you, instead of taking 200,000, take 200, but give 45,000 back to your wife to subsidize the payment. And he might say, well, 45,000 is a lot of money. And I say, yeah, but 155,000 is a lot of money too, that you're going to get today in your pocket. You're going to move on with your life. You're not going to have to worry about any repairs that may be done to the house. Or you don't have to worry about 3 years from now, your wife may not be in a position to refinance. Maybe she all of a sudden not working. You're going to guarantee to get your house, your money. And the other thing too is, let's say, you're worried about, the 45,000, 15,000 a year. Heck, I mean, CDs are paying over 5% right now. So you put that 155,000 in a CD. That's like 7,500 for the year. 3 years is there's 22.5. That's half of your 45,000 right there. And you can just move on. You're off the mortgage, and you have a clean slate, clean mind. You don't, you can, if you're at work and you're in sales, or you have your own business, if you're waiting for this refinance to happen, this thing's going to be consuming you, and your productivity may drop like a rock. So this $15,000 a year may be like nothing compared to the loss of productivity or loss of sales because you're not focused like you should be. And getting back to the basics, when we first spoke, I said to the husband, you said you wanted to move on at all costs. Well, this is your cost, and you can't even look at it as a cost, because you just like the idea of 200,000. 200,000, it's not even real. That's just a figure, because the interest rates were so low that's what helped drive up the prices of the homes. People were able to, affordability was greater, and it was driving up these prices. So you're just basing it on today's appraisal. Heck, what if 3 years from now the house doesn't appraise as high, and now you're not going to get that 200,000 anyways? I would take the money now. So that's what I say to people that they want to. It's like giving themselves the golden handcuffs. They're not going to move until the rates drop. If they drop, we all assume they will. We all want them to,
I'll
but
tell you what, man. There's a reason why the wealthy invest in times like these when people are afraid to invest. They get the properties. There's an age-old saying, I know you've heard it, and you've said it many, many times to me as well. Marry the house, don't marry the rate.
that's true. And that's the thing, because it goes back to, you know, when people say, "Oh, I don't want to buy a house because the rates are are too high. And then you say, well, wait a second. This house I'm showing you, it's checked off every single box that we talked about that you like. You like the way the kitchen's laid out, the master bedroom, how it has a private bathroom, and it has everything. And because of the rate, what I say to people like that is they say, okay, the rate's going to be, again, let's say the rate's going to cost me $1,000 more a month than I want to spend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, I got a nice strategy for you. You have two car loans. They total, I don't know, about 50,000, and the monthly payments are $1,300. And you got 20 grand in credit cards. Monthly payments total another 700. There's $2,000. So when you go buy this house, put so there's 50, 70, put $70,000 down less, pay off that debt. Okay. So you just saved $2,000. Yeah, the mortgage payment would be a little higher, call it five.
Yep.
You're net positive $1,400 with a higher interest rate.
And you want to hear a different perspective? I always talk about this as well. That's a great perspective. And logically speaking, that makes sense, right, John? I think it makes a lot of sense. But a different perspective also is that, at different times of the market is different gains and different pros and different cons. Right
Yeah.
now, you're going to get a better price on a home versus when the rates were 3%. When the rates were 3%, I've sold houses. I was listing houses $200,000 over asking. Easy.
Yeah.
And now it's much less. It's like $30,000 to $50,000 over asking in comparison to $200,000 over asking. And sometimes houses stay on the market for longer that would have sold in the past, and that you can get a good deal on it. So you have to weigh your pros and cons. Like, you can always change your rate, but you can't always change the price of the home once you get the home. So, you have to weigh which you'd prefer. Me personally, I love it right now because it's high interest rates. They aren't overbidding like crazy. They're overbidding, but not like crazy. So I could get a good price on a home, condo, multifamily investment, whatever it may be. I have a high interest rate, but when the rates go down, I'm going to refinance, but I cannot renegotiate the price I get the house at. Never.
That's right. Yeah. And the value of the house will only go up,
Exactly.
even in these times, and especially in the Boston area, I mean, $700,000 house, even if it goes up just 1% in that's 7 grand that you just gained in equity. And to your point, there's less people bidding on the house, so you have an easier time getting that without having to go $200,000 over asking in this market.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
there's all these programs you guys have access to now. It's 3-2-1 buy down,
Yep.
refinance in the future, whatever it may be. You can always change the rate in the future. Buy down points even if you really are caring about the rate that much.
Yeah.
But I guess with that, we'll segue into the next question that I've been thinking about a while now. Is like, I've been thinking about people that, let's say you're married and one spouse works, but the other spouse doesn't work. What do you have? What's the options that the spouse that doesn't have any streams of income like that? What kinds of income, or what can you do to qualify them? Like, it's very tough, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's other ways to do that. Yeah, well, right off the bat, I'm sure that spouse may be receiving alimony or child support,
Okay.
or because sometimes someone will give a lump sum of instead of like alimony on a monthly basis, maybe like 500,000, and they're done. They could take that 500,000 and put it into an annuity. Would be one example, and then the annuity they could just pay out. Say, okay, we're going to do distributions of like $10,000 a month. As long as we can demonstrate that income stream will continue for 3 years, I can use that. I just need 1 month to show 1 month's distribution, and I have instant qualifying income, just like that.
Just like,
Yeah, yeah. Or the other thing too is, like, let's say the spouse, um, you know, notes receivable. Let's say they put um, maybe the husband wants to keep the house, and instead of the direct buyout, she puts a mortgage on the house, and he pays her, um, you know, 3 or 4 grand a month. We can use that as long as we can demonstrate that's going to continue for at least 3 years.
well,
Um, Rental income, if they happen to own other property, we we could take a look at that as well. Um, Asset dissipation, getting back to that 500,000, if they didn't want to put it into annuity, we have the ability to amortize that over 20 years, and that comes out to about $2,000 a month that we can use towards qualifying income without them even having to touch that. We could use that. I've had people that had, a few $1,000,000, and we were able to use, it was like 12 grand a month for qualifying income just by, it's called, basically it's called asset dissipation is the term that we use to,
Participation. Okay.
yeah, for qualifying income.
All right.
So there are ways.
All right.
Definitely.
Beautiful. I didn't even know like you could use all those different streams of income to help qualify people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, there's royalties. People that some of these Hollywood movie stars. That get paid on these reruns. That's it's in their contract. That works too.
That's really cool. I'd love to have some royalties.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
John, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Is there anything you'd like the audience to know before we sign off and let them go on their way?
yes, there is life after divorce, and you need to create a vision as to what your life is going to be like, because it's going to be a wonderful life. So just take a step back, get out of the fog, and just look for your vision. Because if you don't have a vision, you could have all the goals in the world, but if you can't see the goal, you're not going to get it. You're never going to score. Maybe once you might get lucky, but you need to have that vision of what you want your life to look like.
Wonderful.
Period.
Guys, and with that, we want to thank you for watching the video. I will include John Maroney's info below or in the email that I send you guys. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to John. He is a specialist in this field as well as a lender. So he doesn't just specifically divorce lending. He does that, but he also does regular lending as well. So if you have any questions at all, please reach out to him. Let me know if you need more information. And thank you, John, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Ciao.
All right.